Next Curve.
Hey everyone, welcome to Next Curve's reThink webcast. We're back. New programs and series on key topics in the world of technology and innovation that matter. I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm probably just really happy to have a good friend on in this episode and participating and collaborating with Next Curve on this series. But today we're kicking off a series entitled The AI Digital Twin, which is probably like the most hype, buzzword loaded title for a series ever. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on what we can expect as AI kind of converges with the digital twin, the next digital frontier. And so I'm joined here today by the notorious Rick Bullotta. Welcome, Rick. How are you doing, my friend?
Notorious RIC. Yes.
Yeah.
Good to see you, man. It's been
Yeah, way too long. And I'm looking forward to doing this with you. And for those of you who don't know, Rick is a co-founder of ThingsWorks, which was bought by PTC a while back. And he's a widely recognized thought leader in IoT and digital twin, as well as AI. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this collaboration with you, Rick, because I think there's a lot of confusion that continues to persist around these topics of digital twin, IoT, of course. You know, you and I talk IoT quite a bit on LinkedIn and exchanges, but also now this emerging interest in AI. And I don't know what your sense is, Rick, but I think it feels like everything's kind of getting overloaded and squished together and not making a lot of sense as it should. So.
Well, overloaded and squished together isn't inherently a bad thing, right? In the sense that one way to look at this stuff, a friend of mine teaches a course at Wharton, systems engineering grad students. And once a year, I'll do a session there. And usually the topic is the synthesis of IoT and AI and next communication. And what I kind of preface all this, in fact, I used to start my IoT talks with this, is there's no such thing as the IoT. There's no such thing as a digital twin. They're not markets unto themselves. They're capabilities that we have to stitch together to do cool stuff, right? And if we just start with that and stop trying to say this is a digital twin product or a AI product or whatever, there are platforms and certainly help.
Yeah.
But you know, and when we've gone back and forth on Coffee Talk about what's a digital twin, you get 10 people, you will get 12 different answers. The reality of it, and that's okay, because truthfully, with any technology, as you know, we all look at it through a different lens. How does it affect me and my role or my job or my industry? So it is going to look different to us.
And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. So the folks who are tuning in and who will listen in on this series, which I think you should, if you really want to know about digital twin, what's happening with all the stuff that's helping it evolve and, you know, creating that synthesis that Rick's talking about, you know, you want to tune in here. We're gonna tackle initially 4 topics, and we'll see how far we go with this, Rick. But number one, in this episode, what we'll do is we'll touch on digital twin. What is it? And, you know, Rick and I will share our thoughts there and setting the semantics straight. And then we'll also talk about in subsequent episodes, where are we in the evolution of the digital twin concept? How is and will artificial intelligence impact and evolve the digital twin? So this kind of, you know, relates to that synthesis thing that you just mentioned. And what are some of the possibilities that we can expect from AI-infused digital twins, which I think, you know, with those 4 bullet items, I think we can have a nice little series to start. So you know, you and I, we've gone back and forth. Sometimes we don't see eye to eye on the definition of digital twin, but you just mentioned, you know, you ask anybody you ask someone, well, what is a digital twin? You get 12 answers back. Do you think that's okay?
Yeah, I do.
Is that helpful?
No, I do. It's like any meme or term, right? I could say the same AI, right? I posted a slide the other day on LinkedIn, like kind of how I help lay people understand what the different clusters of AI.
Yeah.
They don't care about technology. How is it used? Same thing with digital twins, right? If you're using them to facilitate design tasks, then there's
Yeah.
it's more the simulation, modeling. If you're using them for optimization, or what are you using for games and metaverse type applications? That's yet another use case. So I think you have to kind of think of it. How are you applying it? It's a very, very generic term. But
Yeah.
even then, the Venn diagram of all the like pieces and parts,
Yeah.
IoT plays into it when you start going into the operations side where you want
Yeah.
to fit with real data. AI. I was fooling around with OpenAI the other day to generate digital twins to have a discussion. Hey, I would like you to generate a digital twin with these capabilities for this format or platform. It took some iterations, but it actually did surprisingly well. So now we start to think about not only do we infuse the digital twins with AI, and we'll talk about that in depth, but can we start leveraging technology to help create them more quickly?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's happening on various fronts, right? You have a lot of the actual, let's call it um, uh, digital twin capture technology, whether it's like lidar, or I mean, if it's a spatial thing, lidar. We have the IoT with the now sensors being able to sense more things, be able to be deployed in larger numbers across a portfolio of assets or even on asset. And so, yeah, there's definitely technologies generally that are making it easier to create digital twins. But here's where I think I find a little bit of angst in the discourse, is that we have, it's something similar with IoT. Once you overload something to a point, a certain point, it loses its meaning. Do you know what I'm saying? And then, and I understand this whole concern, or let's call it a combination for context, which is important. But I think there has to be some sort of agreement on what are we really talking about in digital twins, right? So is an avatar, let's say, a model of something, let's say it's a Dungeons and Dragons character, okay, that you use in a game that you might be controlling in that, gaming environment. Is that a digital twin? Because there are some people who say that it is.
Sure.
Okay.
Does it have to be a reflection of something in the real world to be
right?
Again, these are sort of semantics,
Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, I'll be blunt. I think it's already gotten to the point that you're describing, where it almost has no real meaning. It's a
Right.
check mark, like generative AI. What the heck does generative AI mean? I mean, 1,000 people, it's generating images and fake video. No, it's generating text. It's generating code.
Yeah.
We can. They're just memes that have lost their purpose.
Yeah.
So, for me, what do I think of it as? It's really there are a number of use cases, right? First of all, it's a abstract representation of some entity, and we always think of it as a physical entity, as a person, a thing, a machine. Right. I think the more progressive thinking should start to embrace digital twins of things like processes, right, or the actual work that occurs. Yeah. Right? Because it's the same thing. It's got logic, got a simulation, it's got rules, it's got a data exhaust.
Yeah.
So, we can have a digital twin of everything, right? It's kind of
yeah.
But the folks that you brought up like the LiDAR stuff, and that's like the hardest way to do it, because you're going to get a crude approximation of something that if you look around, someone probably has the design for that architect of a building, or the design of of a manufacturing plant, or the design of a washing machine, right? So companies that are in like the CAD PLM space, Dassault, PTC, Siemens, SAP, right? that's an asset you can build on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people haven't really designed those, but why
Yeah.
reinvent that 3D look?
Yeah.
Next phase that a lot of people don't know about is a lot of modern design tools actually synthesize physics-based first principles
Yeah.
concepts.
Yeah.
When you're designing a new, bicycle part, you didn't actually make one. You know how it's going to behave. You know the
Yeah.
physics of what
Right.
material. Um, Companies like ANSYS, right? They have very sophisticated dynamics that can be injected into that. Well,
Right.
once you know that much about like in the design phase, can't those be used then to like simulate whole systems? So that's the
Right.
next thing.
Right.
It's like SimIO that'll do like digital twins of entire systems, right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
before you've made one F-35,
Yeah.
you've totally modeled the entire assembly line or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the IoT ones, right? That's where we say, hey, we've got this thing and we want to synthesize some real world data, data about how it was built, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff together.
Yeah.
The one I don't believe is the people that think a digital twin is just the analog to a physical device, that there's a one-to-one. In my experience, a good digital twin is actually an amalgam of stuff from its whole heritage, right? From
Right.
design to build to deployment to
Yeah.
use.
Right, right, yeah, yeah, and I guess I tend to be on the camp that you don't agree with.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, 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 it is fine because I think I find the importance of having semantics clear for myself important in communicating, right? And whether or not your semantics match and your conceptual point of view on digital twins match mine or not doesn't matter. It's like as long as I'm clear on how I view things, then I can map to how you look at things, right? Because back in the day when I used to run large tech teams, development teams, as an architect, one of the things I had to do was help our teams communicate. And part of that process was to get people who have different conceptual and semantic understandings of literally the same thing, get past those and communicate in a common language, right? And so that's usually where I come from, but I can appreciate where you're coming from. It's just a matter now in terms of semantics, being able to rein in or be able to somehow get to that common, semantic. And it may just be an instance in time or a situation where we at least agree on what we're talking about so that we can make something happen. Do you know what I'm saying? Instead of doing this. And I find that there's a lot of this happening. And you see a lot of the discussions around, especially what Michael Greaves has put out there initially. A lot of debate, a lot of, and things aren't converging. They seem to be diverging. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'll give you a great, although I will also profess that I'm just because a term was created by someone that they necessarily know what the
Yeah.
I'll give you a great example, the IoT, right? When
Yeah.
Kevin Ashton originally coined that term, it has nothing to do with what we think of as the IoT today. So why can't the same be true?
Yeah.
Seriously. So why can't the same be true of digital twins? Maybe we need to adjectivize it. And instead of saying digital twin is that be all end all, we have, I don't know what the segmentation would be, but those ones that are designed for the design phase, for simulation, or it's digital twin with a set of capabilities.
Right.
To your point about terminology, I've been involved in some standards work over the years. Probably the most valuable one that I was involved in was something called the ISA S88 standard. And that's for how, to your point, the original work was around models and terminology for automating factories that produce things in batches, right? Food, CPG, beverages.
Right.
Even if it never became anything implementable, the fact that we could have a common set of terms on how to describe what we needed to get done or how we were doing something meant an integrator, an equipment supplier, and a customer could know exactly, to your point about your architect telling your people what to do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've already had a proliferation of, last count, 15, 16, there's probably 100 digital twin consortia that don't even call themselves digital twins, but that's really what they are.
Yeah.
So I think that genie's out of the bottle, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what can you do?
I think this is what we can agree on. And I like how you started this session, that it's a concept, right? It's not a technology. It can be applied using and implemented using a wide range of technologies, maybe even what you might consider a platform. We won't get into that debate, right? But that's probably the most important thing to understand, is that it's a concept, and maybe has a lot of variations and meaning based on context, and and I guess there will be debates going forward on what do people mean by digital twin, but as long as we're like what you're saying, because we're seeing a lot of people come out with digital twin market forecasts. It's like, there is no market
for what, right?
What?
And is that 90% of the time that's double counting some or renaming some segment that's already been counted for 200 years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think, will we ever get to some kind of interop standard or standard definition? I don't know. Well, yeah, we will. We'll get to 20 of them. That's the problem, right? Yeah. And honestly, I've made a nice living. That complexity is really, both of my companies were to solve that problem. Yeah. So I just sort of accept it as a reality. But education, right? Starting, are these concepts taught in schools? I don't know. I don't know if there's, I'm sure there at the university level, there's some kind of mention of digital twins somewhere, maybe not.
Yeah.
Who knows? To me, it comes down to, if as a vendor or supplier, whatever I'm doing with digital twins, just make it open, make it have APIs for everything. Yeah. If you're a customer, don't buy any digital twin stuff if it's not interoperable with other people's stuff. Move on to the next, potential supplier. Yeah. But don't get hung up also on, standard A versus standard B, because they're all wrong.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that we can count on, is that there will always be complexity, and there will always be middleware guys that are looking to make that complexity workable, right? Or at least something workable through that complexity. And also we can probably count on the semantics of digital twin changing going forward as the buzzword starts to be adopted by different bubbles. Right? So
we at ThingWorks, we tried to take an abstraction, which was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And how if I want to interact with something, a person, a system, whatever, digitally, what might that look like?
Yeah.
Maybe we just need more kind of, white papery best practice kind of examples, and maybe over time something morphs into a pseudo standard or whatever. But just maybe it starts with education, like you said, terminology, and then concrete examples to say, here's how this stuff can be applied. Why?
Yeah.
Then you get the digital thread discussion, right? You think people have confused definitions of digital twin? Same thing, maybe worse, of what a digital thread is.
Okay.
These are marketing terms.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's some merit in a lot of these things. Is just how you're coming at these concepts. Do you know what I'm saying? Are you coming from this sort of boil the ocean perspective that it is everything, and it's that it is everything, that a thing is in a digital sense? or is it something much more specific and condition based, right? This is what, and, prescribe specific. And, I tend to be more on the prescribe specific because, I think you need to get there in order to actually make something happen. The boil the ocean stuff, I don't know how well aligned that is to anyone's particular problem. It is like where I come from. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the pragmatist in me says we'll never get to that because like I said, the genie's out of the bottle, right? They're already so. What we need to do is facilitate best practices for integration and interoperability. I did a talk a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, that's really
what we need is if at its most simplest, you think of a digital twin as, oh man, I'll contradict myself 10 times here, but
okay,
it's an API for both the real world entity and its digital thing. It's the models and logic, maybe they're physics based. Actually, that's another interesting intersection that's happening now increasingly. Is we always thought of physics-based models for design and physics-based models for simulation. Now we're starting to see them infused into AI. Because why should we invest massive amounts of compute power to teach F equals MA, right? It's silly, right? Or more complex chemistry and biology. And we're starting to see increasingly this blending of physics models and AI as a sort of a special kind of digital twin as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, don't get ahead of don't get ahead of the agenda, man.
All right.
So, hey, you know what? That's all the time we have for this installment of the AI digital twin. And Rick, it was great to spend some time with you on this topic. I'm looking forward to the next installments. And do you want anyone to reach out to you, or do you want to share what you're doing before we close out?
I advise a bunch of interesting companies in and around that space and buy their stuff.
And that's it. Don't contact me, right? Well, you can look him up on LinkedIn. You can't hide from him. He's all over. So yeah, just look for Rick Bullotta, and you'll find him and his wonderful opining and dare I say trolling
and discuss and debate. If you disagree, right?
Oh yeah. No, he's the best guy to debate with, and super knowledgeable as you
all learn. That's how we all learn. I learn every day.
Yeah, there you go. And so, hey, Rick, thanks to our audience. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I hope that you will continue to tune into subsequent installments, and remember to subscribe to the reThink podcast and follow Next Curve at www.next-curve.com. And we will see you next time. Take care.
See you later.